Right there. I saw.
He's rearranging.
Giants, technicians, brawlers, counter-punchers. Manny Pacquiao faced them all 8 divisions for decades against legends, champions, and warriors with nothing to lose. Out of 72 nights where fists collided and careers tilted, only a handful ever made him pause, rethink, and silently admit that guy was different. Not just hard to beat, hard to breathe around, hard to process, hard to still be Pacquiao. Because when your style is built on speed, chaos, and relentless pressure, the deadliest opponent is the one who makes you question, who makes you second guess, who makes you miss. These men didn't just land punches, they landed doubt. They earned a place on his private list not through hype, but through hardship. No excuses, no bravado, just raw respect forged in pain. These are the fighters Pacquiao himself calls the toughest. And once you hear their names, you'll never see his highlight reel the same way again.
I don't understand that.
His father told him, don't do anything stupid. Please be cautious. He switched southpaw and got hit by a massive...
When Pacquiao speaks about boxing, he doesn't sound like a retired icon basking in glory. He speaks like a lifelong student, still breaking down the craft. Every opponent wasn't just a challenge, they were a lesson. Some taught him rhythm, others taught him patience, a few forced him to evolve in real time or risk getting left behind. And in Manny's words, you hear something rare in a sport built on ego truth. Because greatness isn't about how many belts you stack, it's about the men who made you bleed, stumble, or dig deeper than you ever expected. That's why this list matters. It's not shaped by headlines or PPV numbers. It's shaped by nights when he was tested, disrupted, forced to earn every inch. And if you think it's just a list of wins, you're wrong. Some of these men beat him, some exposed him. And Pacquiao still gives them credit because they made him better. The first on the list? A man who shattered the momentum in 2005, Manny was blazing through the sport fast, feared the future until Eric Morales showed up. No trash talk, no gimmicks, just pure discipline. He didn't chase Pacquiao, he corralled him. Didn't match his speed, he interrupted it. For 12 rounds, Morales gave him frustration, not failure. Pacquiao didn't blame the gloves, the cut, or the camp, he blamed himself. Morales was smart, patient, earned it. And even after beating him in the rematches, Manny never forgot that first loss. It wasn't just a defeat, it was a reset button. A reminder that speed can be slowed, that rhythm can be rewritten. And Morales was the man who did it. But if Morales stalled the momentum, Juan Manuel Marquez was the one who never let him breathe. For fights, for unresolved chapters, Marquez wasn't just tough, he was brilliant. Where others drowned in the storm, he stood still, timed it, and fired back. Pacquiao called him a nightmare not because of power or speed, but because he knew the beat to Manny's drum better than anyone. Whenever Pacquiao adapted, Marquez reloaded. Their rivalry was pain without bitterness. And in the fourth fight, that pain became final. One counter, one perfect punch, Pacquiao, face down, the world shot. The legacy silenced, and still especially. Then Pacquiao's respect grew, because Marquez never blinked, never folded, never gave him peace. He was always there, not as a shadow, but as a mirror.
He can slow you down at his pace. There's no way in the world you're going to beat him. I don't get the fight.
Rounds.
He didn't just remember the punches. He remembered the silence between them, the hesitation. That eerie sense of being read mid-motion, as if Marquez knew his move before it happened. That wasn't luck, that was mastery. Then came Floyd Mayweather, Junior Pacquiao's biggest stage and his most maddening night. This wasn't a war, it wasn't even a fight. It was a puzzle Manny couldn't crack. 12 rounds of chasing shadows, swinging at ghosts. Landing just enough to keep hope alive, but never enough to change the tide. Floyd didn't outmuscle him, he outmaneuvered him. He smothered the angles, muffled the flurries, and drained the rhythm right out of Pacquiao's offense. That was the sting, not the loss, but the helplessness. Manny came in prepared, convinced that speed and experience would carry him. But Floyd didn't fight for thrill, he fought for control. Every step forward became hesitation, every burst a reset. Afterward, Manny mentioned the shoulder. Some called it an excuse, but the truth? Even at 100%, Mayweather was a nightmare stylistically. Pacquiao later said Floyd was smart, not as a compliment, but as a code for unsolvable. He didn't hate him, he just couldn't hit him. And for a man who made his name on speed and aggression, being neutralized not by punches, but by distance left a scar that went deeper than most blows, Mayweather beat Manny not with violence, but with silence, with precision, and for that, even Pacquiao had to admit he was one of the toughest.
That many jabs. He doesn't jab as much as people think. Much as people think.
Then came Miguel Cotto. No tricks, no chess, just war. This wasn't finesse, this was about will, heart, who could endure more punishment and still advance. In the early rounds of their 2009 clash, it wasn't clear who that would be. Cotto came out hard, sharp, physical, determined. He targeted the body, pushed Manny back, kept control of the tempo. For once, Pacquiao wasn't the storm, he was surviving one. Cotto could absorb the chaos and return fire. But gradually, Manny adjusted to speed and angles to start dismantling the armor. He broke Cotto down, but never easily. Every round demanded more creativity, more energy. Cotto never collapsed, he lasted. Even after the TKO, Pacquiao didn't gloat, he praised. Called Cotto one of the strongest men he'd ever faced, not just in power, but in purpose. Because Cotto didn't just fight, he stood for something. He was defending more than a belt. And that emotional resolve, that refusal to give in, left an impression that Manny carried far beyond that night.
Body shots absorbed nicely.
He's a guy who has been shaken in fights. He has been knocked down. I'll probably thought the fight goes the distance. It'll be interesting to see how they scored that one.
And then there was Antonio Margarito. The size difference was surreal. At the weigh-in, it looked like a mismatch. On fight night, Margarito stepped into the ring nearly 17 pounds heavier, towering over Pacquiao like a tank. But it wasn't just the size that made him dangerous, it was the unbreakable will. Manny threw everything: speed, angles, volume, over 400 punches landed. Yet Margarito never stopped. His face ballooned, his orbital bone shattered. His vision blurred, still, he kept pressing forward relentlessly. For all of Manny's brilliance, there were moments in the middle rounds where he looked at Margarito and thought, "Why won't you fall?" It was one of the few times Pacquiao felt something different: pity. He later admitted it. Margarito was the only opponent he ever felt sorry for mid-fight. Because no matter how much damage he absorbed, he wouldn't back down, and that stubbornness, however reckless, was unforgettable.
No, I think that one punch got Pacquiao's attention.
Oh, and that's a big left hand by Pacquiao.
And now Pacquiao fighting off the ropes and kind of getting things back to where they were.
Listen to the crowd as the bell sounds.
In the end, Manny didn't rank his toughest opponents by belts, paydays, or press. He ranked them by how far they made him go. Morales tested his brain, Marquez haunted his rhythm. Mayweather outmaneuvered his timing. Cotto challenged his endurance. Margarito battered his humanity. Each of them left more than bruises, they left growth. They made him sharper, tougher, more self-aware. These weren't just fights, they were transformations. The public sees knockouts and trophies. What they don't see is the recalibration, the soul-searching after the bell, the invisible scars that shaped the fighter behind the flash. Manny's greatest opponents weren't just the ones who hit hard, they were the ones who made him evolve, who demanded something deeper, something that couldn't be seen on a scoreboard. And every time he talks, every time he reflects, that humility shines through. He never brags about breaking others, he remembers the ones who pushed him to the brink and helped him become something even greater.
Yeah, that's easy. Let's fight. It's hard. And I want to thank everybody for the
So when Pacquiao lists his toughest opponents, he's not handing out compliments, he's honoring battles. These weren't names on a resume, they were storms he had to survive. Men who made him miss, who made him doubt, who made him wonder am I slipping? And in that tiny moment of uncertainty, Pacquiao discovered clarity not through dominance, but through resistance. Because real greatness isn't about walking through everyone. It's about finding a way when the road gets brutal. Pacquiao's story isn't one of invincibility, it's about adjustment, about rising after getting dropped, about fighting smarter, deeper. Morales made him reset, Marquez made him rethink, Mayweather made him reach, Cotto made him endure, Margarito made him feel, and together, they helped him build the wildest, most unforgettable legacy in boxing. You don't become Manny Pacquiao by dodging the hard nights, you become him by surviving them. That's why their names live on. Because they didn't just fight him, they revealed him, and what we saw. That wasn't just a boxer, that was something else entirely.
to 110. Judges Bert Clements and Glenn Feldman both scored about the same, 116 to 100.
Through all the wars, titles, and roaring crowds, Manny Pacquiao never let pride do the talking. Not when he became the only 8-division world champion. Not when presidents welcomed him and entire countries paused for his fights, because for him, the mission wasn't to be the best, it was to be better than yesterday. And the opponents who helped him get there? He remembers them not with bitterness, but with respect. In a sport that trains you to forget, to move on, to pretend you've always been dominant, Manny remembers the pain. The punches he couldn't dodge, the stare-downs that screamed, "I'm not scared of you." That's why, when asked who was the toughest, he tells the truth. No pee or spin, no ego, just names and lessons. Because that's what this list is, a tribute not to triumphs, but to trials. Greatness isn't born in blowouts. It's forged in those exhausting, nerve-wracking rounds where the man in front of you refuses to fold. Pacquiao's legacy came from those moments, and the fighters who brought him to the edge, win or lose, helped define him. That's why their names echo in highlight reels, gym walls, and comment threads. Because they weren't just matchups, they were moments. Real, painful, unforgettable chapters that told us what Pacquiao was really made of. Yes, the knockouts were legendary, the belts, historic. But the wars, the gut checks, those are why fans still watch him frame by frame. Maybe because deep down, we admire that he never ducked the hardest nights. He took the hits, made adjustments, gave credit. And that is legacy. So tell us who made your list? Who tested Pacquiao like no one else? Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe, because at Knockout, we don't just tell fight stories, we reveal what made legends sweat, suffer, and grow. Behind every roar, there's a doubt. Behind every highlight, a hard round. And every time they tried to break Manny, they built something greater. That's the line between champions and icons. And Pacquiao crossed it again and again.